Hey up and welcome to the Rugby League Outsiders Set of Six show, where we share 6 interesting stories from around the world of rugby league. My name's Karl.
And my name's Mark, and this week we're going to be talking all things Midlands Grand Final, and we'll be debating the impact of IMG on the sport.
Okay, Mark, really cracking week of rugby league, especially if you're in the Midlands. So that'll bring us straight into tackle one. Midlands Hurricanes defeated Workington Town this week to put themselves into the playoffs. Have you been keeping an eye on the Hurricanes this year?
Yeah, I've been keeping an eye on them a little bit, not as much as the Championship, which is the part of the sport that I follow most. But I'm really intrigued as to how the Hurricanes are getting on, and the Crusaders and all the other teams from outside the Heartlands, especially looking at the impact of the backers that they've had this season.
Yeah, and I suppose it's worth saying for people who haven't watched the show, yes, Craig isn't here this week. He's in Scotland filming something else, but Mark's with us. He's a lifelong witness fan, aren't you, Mark, for your sins?
Yeah, for my sins, yeah.
You may recognise him from episodes before. He's a Midlands referee and doing a lot of great stuff for down here in the community. So Midlands, I went there this weekend. Really interesting to see. They've improved the place. That's the first thing I noticed. So the Alexander Stadium, now when you turn up at the Alexander Stadium, used to feel like an athletics ground.
Yeah.
No Midlands branding, no rugby league branding. When you turn up there now, it's finally got it in some decent state. You go there, there's Hurricanes branding on the walls. The changing rooms are fitted out. Sponsor boards are starting to appear on the front of the front of the pitch. Yeah. It's all going in the right direction. It looks really good, and it's starting to feel like they belong there now. So
it feels like it's their home, and that they belong in Birmingham as a long-term venture. Yeah,
100%. I think there's room for improvement, and I think the club will back me up on that. I think that we need to engage the community game more with the Hurricanes.
Yeah, definitely.
But positive signs this week. They had the women's games on before, so they had the Midland Hurricanes women, Leamington and Telford all playing sort of a round robin before the game, and that was really great to see. And it increased the attendance figure, and I think that's the way forward for the club.
Definitely. I mean, when I've been going to watch the rugby league at various grounds, I think over the last few years, there's not been so much of a community engagement at the fixtures.
Yeah.
I mean, when I was a kid, it was always the under-11s who were the curtain raisers, get the kids into the ground. I mean, that's why I became involved in watching Widnes so much, is because of the community engagement that the club had with the public round about 1990, as well as us being world champions. But yeah, I mean, my club Widnes, I don't think we do enough before the game to get the community involved. So what the Hurricanes are doing, I think that's definitely the way forward.
Yeah, it's a good start. North Wales Crusaders, I was there earlier on in the year. They're doing really well with it. There's always loads of community stuff happening on the pitch before one of those games. Any Super League clubs that you can think of that do it well or not?
Well, unfortunately, no. I've not been able to get to Super League for the last few years. I think with Super League, they just rely a lot at the moment on the fact that they are Super League.
Yeah.
I think if you go to like London, they will have to do a lot more with community engagement because they need to build that fan base. But I think a lot of the Super League teams, they've got such high attendances, they're well-built clubs that they maybe don't need to invest so much. But obviously they will do away from the match day. But on the match day, people need to go and see an event.
Yeah.
And so going to watch the Hurricanes at the weekend, you need to go and see it wasn't just 80 minutes of rugby. It was 80 minutes of rugby with the main event, but then you've also got the community involved as well.
Yeah, the community were involved. They had a singer on who turned up late, but they did have a singer on. They're starting to build a little bit of a fan zone, so that's all positive steps. And I'll put something out there now. I spoke to the guys at the weekend. I'd like to see the Midlands finals being played at the Alexander Stadium.
I was thinking about this earlier on because speaking to a few of the people around the ground on Saturday at the Midlands final, it was just one game. Last season it was the women's.
It was 2 on it. It was a lot better. Yeah.
So I was a bit disappointed with that. I mean, we could talk about that in a minute, but I was speaking to other people because I've refereed a lot of Merit League games this year, and there's a lot coming out of the Merit League as well. They need something to aim for as well. And if you could have the Merit League Grand Final on as well, that gets a lot more
full
people
day rugby
there.
in it, yeah.
And I thought, well, couldn't we have a junior festival on before it as well? Or couldn't this whole thing, if there was a game on before the Hurricanes match on Sunday, why couldn't that have been the Midlands Grand Final? I mean, I don't know enough about the costs of it all, but I definitely think there's scope to make this even bigger next year.
Well, I think the Hurricanes have got a bit more control about what they can actually do at the stadium now. I think that's something that's always held them back, but they are at that point now where they're able to control what happens. So hopefully we'll see more engagement between the professional game and the community game, and it should go in the right direction. Talking about the Hurricanes game anyway, I was supposed to be talking about the match. We'd gone off in a complete tangent. They played really well at the weekend. They came out of the blocks absolute firing. They were 12-0 up on Workington before Workington even got off the team bus. Workington did grind their way back into the game. I think it was actually surprisingly closer than I thought at one point. I think it was only 4 points in it at one point. But yeah, the Hurricanes, they smashed them really. They were the far better team from minute one. And a well-earned victory. And that puts them right into that playoff mix now. They're going to Cornwall next week. I think if they beat Cornwall next week, they'll secure that final playoff place. And then who knows where they could go from there.
Well, I was looking at the result and thinking, God, that's a shock against Workington. Workington from, like, say Heartlands, but it's not Heartlands, but it is. But they've got a heavy amateur setup in Cumbria, so it could be deemed a shock. But looking at Workington, looking at their message boards and that recently, I don't think it is so much of a shock against Workington. Well, but you've still got to play the game, haven't you?
Yeah, though that's their second win over Workington this year. Yeah. They're beating both home and away. Anyway, I caught up with Aaron Willis and Mark Dunning, head coach, after the game. So here's those clips now.
Real good start. I thought we all dug in well. We did what we said we were going to do for the first 20 and just took it to them. Couple of lapses in concentration, let them get back in, but I thought we did well. Just not to get on each other's back, stick with it and come out with a win. Just keep doing what we were doing. We were turning them over in right on their line in horrible positions. In this heat, coming out of yardage is horrible. So I think we just kept showing up in that end of the field. Good, mate. I've had a couple of niggles and that. But bouncing back, all the boys are really good at getting around each other and getting everyone back to where we need to be. So yeah. Cheers, mate. Yeah, mate. 2 more games, 2 more wins. That's our goal. We said at the start of the year that we want to reach playoffs and be a force in League One. So yeah.
Yeah, really, really happy. We're doing it tough at the moment, injury-wise. So we lost 4 blokes at Keighley for season-ending injuries, and we had 2 guys pull out today, and Jake Mamo and Ryan Johnson as well. So really backs against the wall performance, but we spoke about whatever it takes mentality, and I think the boys were tremendous all day. Yeah, well, we said, look, the conditions, it's warm, it's sweltering, and they're a big set of human beings, aren't they, the Workington boys. So we said if we can hold on to the ball and play territory, then we'll get some joy in the second half, and I think that showed.
Playoffs?
Yeah, brilliant, mate. And all the people that says expansion don't work, well, I think that's just shown it does. So no, it's a great club. Falling in love with the club, it's tremendous. The people behind the scenes are terrific, and I think you've seen today what Mike and Greg are working really, really hard all week. Along with all the other staff off field, and putting on an event like this today, it's just so good to see upwards of nearly 1,000 people in the Alexander, and long may that continue. We've got 2 games left, and the boys and everyone connected to the club have earned the right to have it in our hands. That's what we've spoken about for the last 3-4 weeks. Really, it's in our hands, and the target at the start of the season was to get to the playoffs, and if we can do that, it'll be tremendous for the club. Really big one, mate. Yeah. So we've tried to create a family environment at this club, and Jake Sweeting's played today, but his dad's in a coma in Greece, in Athens actually. So he told me on Thursday, we've known about it, and we've just been monitoring the situation day by day. But for Jake to put his hand up and play how we played today, I thought it's just a testament to him, his character. And we'd like to dedicate that win to his dad Rob and his mum Sarah, and all the Sweeting family, because they're doing it tough at the moment.
Go Hurricanes! Go Marching! Go Hurricanes! Go Marching! I wanna be in that number. Go Hurricanes! Go Marching! Hurricanes! Go marching in! Oh, when the kids go marching in! I want to be that number! Oh, when the kids go marching in!
Right, tackle 2 then. Midlands Rugby League, even more Midlands Rugby League. We're going to talk in Community Rugby League now. Midlands Grand Final took place this weekend between Telford Raiders and Nottingham Outlaws.
Right, tough physical encounter, the heat. There's a hill as well, so when you're playing up that hill, defending sets was really difficult. I think we were 8 points down at half time, and I don't know, just real effort from the lads. I think we started completing sets better in the second half and had them running up the hill defending. Yeah, going back to back, I think it's been a great season. We've built into the season and I'm just happy to get the win. I had a bit more space. This pitch is a bit wider than our home pitch. I think I didn't play Nottingham at home, so maybe I was a little bit of an unknown entity. So I had that little bit more space and getting one-on-ones. And I think when you're getting one-on-ones in league with a 10-metre run-up, you know, you've always got a chance, haven't you? And fortunately, I was able to make a couple of breaks and help the team.
Started off with a few hard yards. Did it the hard way. They came out as hard in defence, put the 4 in on our backs every time. I think we got the first points. They come straight back at us. It was to and fro most of the game. We panicked a bit and then settled. Yeah, we dug deep, found the extra 5% we needed and got a few tries on them.
I think we tried to do too much too early on in the season. I think when we went to Sherwood away and Nottingham at home, we were just trying to play really fancy rugby. And Nottingham gave us a lesson at our place in just doing the basics, getting 3 into the tackle, slowing the play of the ball, and then getting quick plays themselves. So I think we've improved massively on that. We've done a lot of work on just getting the basics right, and I think that's made the big difference. It's great, this is only my second year of playing rugby league, and I've absolutely loved every minute. Like this group of lads, there's a togetherness that I don't think I've felt, in many other places. It's you see all the lads come together with every score, and it's just an amazing feeling. And going back to back, I think it's great for Nathan, his first season as a head coach. Joe's been fantastic coaching us all season, and the lads just putting the effort in, week out, turning up, putting shots in, putting their bodies on the line. Yeah, it's fantastic, it feels great.
I wouldn't say we made any changes, we just went back to basics at training, listened to what Nathan and Joe told us at training, and yeah, just dug into what they were telling us to do and really stuck at it. The big one was numbers in D, getting them on their backs, quick play the ball when we had the ball, and just playing simple basic rugby league.
Yeah, fingers crossed. I think we had a few injuries in the Midlands final last year, and we maybe didn't go to the Harry Jepson with the strongest squad that we could have had. And I think, yeah, we'd love to give it a go again this year. I'd love to get in that Challenge Cup and give it a go.
Mark, you was officiating at it. First of all, give me your take on the game.
I thought it was a fantastic advert for Midlands Rugby League. I thought, for me, it was such a privilege to just be involved. I mean, I refereed Telford versus Sherwood the week before, and that was a tough encounter. But just being a touch judge this weekend, it just was an amazing experience. The players, both teams, the spectators, it was just a great day. And I think for the players to see that there's 2 touch judges who were mic'd up, I think that just added to them feeling that it was just a special day for them.
Yeah, it was. And Telford came out winners of that, 28 points to 24. It was an incredibly close game. And I've been saying that for the last few weeks. I can't really call who's going to win the Midlands division this year. And even on game day, it was very tight, wasn't it? I think Telford came out of the blocks firing a little bit quicker. They had quite a few line breaks, which set them up quite nicely going up the hill.
Yeah.
But Nottingham were in the lead at half time. There were 8 points advantage, but it did have a hill on it. I don't know if you thought about that at half time and what that hill was worth in points.
Well, I mean, right, in rugby league, when you go to places like Batley, Mount Pleasant, there's a hill. You go to Featherstone, there's a hill. You always know if your team is playing uphill in the first half, that's all right because you got it out of the way.
Yeah,
and if you can get close to your team, the opposition, by half time you're playing up the hill, it's all right because in the second half a hill will count. But with these 2 sides, I wasn't quite sure whether it would have so much of an impact. But I remember there was one instance during the second half where Telford just kept getting a roll on down the hill because Nottingham were lying on at the play of the ball. So the referee, James, he kept giving the 6 again, because Nottingham couldn't cope with the roll. And Telford weren't playing fantastic rugby, but they were really efficient, using the hill to their advantage. Just scoots from acting half, scoot. And within half a minute, they'd gone from their own goal line to
the
the
other
Nottingham
end of the field,
Outlaws,
yeah.
and that made a difference. Just playing the conditions to their advantage.
Nottingham are one of these teams that just don't go away. They know how to just keep grinding the game out. There was a couple of occasions where I thought Telford... Initially, I thought Telford were going to pull away at the start, but they bombed a few tries. Nottingham got their noses in front. And then in the second half, there was another period where I thought Telford were going to start pulling away. They started breaking the line. And Nottingham just kept coming back. They just kept grinding it out. And they're a really well-coached side. And I think probably that's a little bit of experience from playing in the Yorkshire League.
Yeah, so they've had a few seasons in the Yorkshire League where every week they're going to come across teams that are hardened. I mean, that some of the players they're playing against might have played semi-pro at one point.
Yeah.
So every week would have been a hard game for them, whereas Telford the last few years, not every week would have been so hard. But they've had experience of the Grand Final, whereas Nottingham haven't. They've always been the team that has had to work really, really hard for the odd victory, but never really had massive success. So I was unsure about how to call that. But from what I know of Telford, when I refereed them against Sherwood, they were really struggling in the first 10, 15, 20 minutes to get out their own half. And I thought Sherwood, they'll have Telford here. But what Telford have got, they seem to have this fitness and the composure. And I was saying to people before the game on Saturday, I think the team that wins will be the team that's composed. And I think that's what Telford did really well on Saturday. In the second half, they used their slope to their advantage. They got the roll on when it was needed. And then when they were on the Nottingham Outlaws line, they then could spread the ball wide. And, of course, Telford, I spoke to on Saturday that I think they just had a really good backline engine to exploit the weaknesses on the flanks. Not that Nottingham had real weaknesses, but when teams started to tire, they could exploit the outside.
Yeah, I think I've got to give a big shout out to Dan Robinson, who played for Telford in the centres. I thought he had a cracking game. He broke the line so many times. I think it was really hard to handle. And Tom Wigglesworth, I think it is, for Nottingham Outlaws. Nottingham Outlaws number 7, I thought, was instrumental in keeping Nottingham in the game. He led that team around the park really well.
I think he's been around the Outlaws for a number of years. I played against him, and he's one of those players. He knows what he's doing.
Yeah, 100%.
And at that level, at Grand Final level, if you've got your halfbacks that know what they're doing, that they can get your forwards around the pitch, then you're halfway there.
Talking about the women's Grand Final, no, that was last week. Nottingham came out on top in that. Have you managed to referee many women's games this year?
I haven't refereed any women's games, but I've always been interested in. I've given it a go because I'm really interested to see how that's come on. Because I know the women's game as a whole has come on a lot. I remember about 3 or 4 years ago, Gary Schofield, who was, again, going back, showing me age, he was a top player around about the 80s and 90s. He was saying a few years ago that the women's game, it's embarrassing to watch, but it's come on such a lot. I mean, I've watched a few games on Sky, and some of the hits coming in, it's I think I wouldn't like to play it against some of these women.
Yeah, so I spoke to Adam Clifford, who is the Leamington Royals head coach. They were actually playing at the Hurricanes ground, we mentioned on Tackle 1. So here's that clip now.
Oh, it's been brilliant this year. We've had huge growth, really. I think every team has had more numbers, more players, been able to play more games. We compare this year to last year, we've played around 10 games, including a couple of friendlies. I think every team last year was playing 3 or 4 at most. So just in terms of game time, it's been a huge boost for the ladies. And I know the girls have had more players as well. We've gone through 24 different players across the season this year, which is huge numbers. Having that many players is great. From our selfish perspective, the league was a bit of a success, kind of joint winners across the whole league, so that's always nice. But really, we're at that stages where I think most of the teams would agree it's not really about who wins the league at the end of the day. It's about playing more rugby, giving us the chance to play more rugby. So next year it's got to be more teams. So we've played today against Midlands Hurricanes. That's the first time we've been able to play against them this season, and they've shown that they're a good team. There's some good players there. So if we can turn our league into a 5 or 6 team league as opposed to 4. Again, that's more rugby, everyone wins. That's the aim for all of us. It's a cool place to be able to play. Definitely want to come back here next season as well. The girls have been so excited to talk about it for the last couple of weeks, being able to come down here and play. Even I trotted out of the tunnel and went, there's a nice post, a nice stand, I'm going to have to drop a little drop goal here. First thing I did when I got out here, so got to make the most of it, haven't you?
Yeah, so Mark, really interesting to hear that numbers are up in the women's game in the Midlands. The league's been more competitive than ever, and next year there's going to be even more teams in it, so it's all going in the right direction.
Fantastic. But I know a report came out about 6 months ago saying that in the north the numbers of participants is falling a little bit in rugby league, which is a shame. But I know in the Midlands participation is just on the up.
Yeah,
it really is.
Across the board in junior rugby, women's rugby, and men's rugby. I actually think we've never had any concrete evidence on this, but we've discussed this a few times. We think the Midlands is probably the fastest growing area of rugby league in the country at the minute.
Definitely. I mean,
numbers of new teams participate. It's got to be.
I mean, going back to when I started playing in the Midlands back in the early 2000s, a team name would sprout up and you think, well, who were these? And they'd last one season.
Yeah.
You've got Worcester, who started off last season, and they had a few games. I thought, will they last? And they've lasted to this season. Quantum's last season, they were this new entity born out of Rugby Rugby Club. Although Martin really wouldn't want me to say that. And I thought, will it last to this season? The numbers of people that they're getting playing every week, because they're treating it as a whole like county thing. It's just amazing.
Yeah, you've only got to look at Quantum Mania that they had at the start of the year. As made waves all the way up north, that did. Tackle 3, we'll move on to tackle 3 then. Harry Smith, red card for Wigan Warriors this week.
And Harry Smith, both missing for that big match against St Helens. Massive moment. The impact of that for the next few weeks. It's been like a boiling kettle for the last 5 minutes, Harry Smith. And Matt Peake with his collecting his thoughts. Yeah. It's been a very, very costly afternoon.
Uncharacteristic, or do you think is that something he's got in his game that we haven't seen before?
I don't think he's got it in his game. There was first game of the season.
Your take on it, first of all. Do you think it was a red?
My take on it was, first of all, what was he doing? But when you see it, the first time you see it, you think, oh, why are we even talking about it? But when you see it from a different angle, I'm thinking,
it was bad.
What was he doing? I mean, the players these days, they should know there's cameras everywhere. You cannot get away with everything. Going back to the Midlands Grand Final, there was a lot of respect from the players towards me and Lewis as touch judges and the referee, because they knew we were mic'd up. They knew there was nowhere to hide.
Yeah.
So Harry Smith, 78th minute, I just don't know what he was doing.
I think there was something going on with James Bentley. I don't know if you saw the sort of 10 minutes leading up to that. He kind of already lost his head, Harry Smith had. I think James Bentley had really got under his skin. So something happened a few tackles before, and he had a bit of a dig at him then. And you know, we all know what James Bentley's like. He just.
It's normally him that's getting the card.
Yeah. But I think he played a blinder there over Harry Smith. I think he got in his head big time, and Harry Smith snapped. And the other thing you got to say is Wigan aren't used to losing.
Like I say, with James Bentley a few seasons ago, it seems to be every other week he was getting a card. I think he's now real. I can't let these players whine me. I've got to be the person that gets under the skin of the other players. Maybe that's what happened with Harry Smith, as well as him getting beat by considerable margin. But 78th minute to do that, and now he misses
Magic weekend. Definitely. I mean, at the time of recording, we don't know how long he's actually going to get banned for.
No.
But
he will miss. From what I've read, he will miss this weekend.
Oh, 100% he'll miss this weekend. It's how many weeks after that he misses? He's going to be looking at 5 games.
But from a referee, if it was just me in the middle, I would have just treated it as, come on, let's just get on. But he had the beauty in his ear of the other referee in the stand saying, we need to look at this.
Do you know what I found really interesting when the referees were talking? I don't know if you heard it, but he actually said, it was Liam Moore, wasn't it? There was a referee. He actually said, make sure it goes on the screen.
I saw that, yeah.
Because it was clearly thinking, I'm going to get a load of stick for giving him a red card here if the crowd don't know why he's been sent off. So he was like, make sure it goes up on the big screen.
But I don't think he just said it once. He said it twice.
Yeah, he did.
And I thought he's just, because again, to anyone that just saw it firsthand, the tackle, it was like,
well, you didn't see it, did you? No. First, yeah. So, no. Yeah, well, that's using technology to your advantage.
If you played it from a different angle, just normal speed, I don't think you would have seen it. But see it in slow motion, it was like a tackle. Then on his way down, he put his arm out. It's like, What was he doing?
Yeah,
78th minute, just play your 2 minutes out and then move on.
I'll move on to the next tackle
Yeah.
quickly, but while we're talking about Harry Smith, on last week's show, me and Craig, we actually discussed the 3 halfbacks that England have got at their disposal this year. Harry Smith, George Williams and Michael Lewis. It's going to be those 3 you would have thought. I can't see anybody else pushing in. Who's your 2 as a starting?
I think one has to be George Williams. It just has to. I remember the series last year against, was it Tonga? George Williams didn't play the first one or first.
He didn't play the first 2, I don't think,
two.
did he?
But I thought the combination between Smith and Lewis worked really well. But then Sean Wayne says, but I'm putting my captain in. He's my captain, George Williams.
Yeah.
I think he has to. I mean, judging on form, he has to be there. In terms of who's the other person, I think Harry Smith and Lewis, they're very different players. Harry Smith, he's got a really good pass selection. He's intelligent that way. Whereas Mikey Lewis, he's got that. I don't know how to put it, but he can do something daft. He can just pull something out of the bag just like that.
Yeah.
And I think at international level, you need to have someone like that. So I'd go with Mikey Lewis.
Mikey Lewis and George Williams. Harry Smith on the bench.
Yeah, because if it doesn't work, you need someone on with that. I say level-headed with Harry Smith, even after what he did. But he can come on and he can do things right. He's an efficient halfback, what I'd say.
Yeah, I agree. You agree with me then?
I agree with you.
That was my pick. So we'll move on to tackle 4. Hammersmith, Hills, Hoist, Triple H beat West Warriors this week, which was essentially a shootout to see who finished top of the league. Southern Conference League, Matt, people are saying now that these 2 sides are potentially 2 of the top amateur sides in the country.
I would agree with you because speaking to people at the weekend who possibly know the Southern teams more than me, there's quite Antipodean interest in them. There's a lot of Kiwis, a lot of Australians who could possibly cut it at, I don't know, League One level, maybe Championship, but they're just based in London.
They don't want to, though, yeah.
Yeah, so could London Broncos be tapping into that bit more? Maybe they are, I don't know. But looking at when the Southern teams have competed in the Challenge Cup, they've not been battered. They've actually been able to compete, which you wouldn't normally have had in years gone by from teams from the south. So I think there is a lot of strength down there.
Yeah, 100%. Well, both these 2 sides had a good run in the Challenge Cup this year, and West's played your side, Widnes, last year, didn't they? In the Challenge Cup.
I didn't manage to get to it last year, but reports from people I know who were there said actually West Warriors they put up a fight.
Yeah.
Again, teams in the Southern Conference, it's not teams from the Northwest Men's League or the Yorkshire Men's League. So you think maybe they can't cut it, but they're actually. I mean, you still got players who know what they're doing.
Yeah, 100%.
And that just seems to be growing year on year with them.
Well, you've got a lot of players who are playing like Queensland Cup and stuff like that. So
definitely, yeah.
Yeah, so the score was 24 points to 16 in favour of Hammersmith Hills Hoist. So it's looking likely, although I'm not going to discredit the other 2 sides, it's looking like those are the 2 sides that are going to make the grand final. So Hammersmith, on the back of this, ended up winning the league, or coming top of the table, should I say, minor premiers. And then the playoffs start next week. But we've got some big games. I'll bring up the league table on your screen at the minute. So Hammersmith finished top, Wests finished second, London Chargers in third. And then we've got a really interesting week coming up with Bristol All Golds in 4th and Eastern Rhinos in 5th, and they're both on 12 points. Mike, you've got the fixtures this week. Who are they playing?
So you got the Eastern Rhinos versus the North Hertfordshire Crusaders. I suppose you could consider that to be a derby as such, with it being the east of the country.
That's 5th v 6th as well, that is.
So that's looking tasty.
Yeah.
And then you got the London Chargers versus the Bristol All Golds. So I suppose you could treat that as an M4 type battle.
So that's 3rd v 4th as well. So look, I'm really interested to see who comes out on top on these fixtures this week. And we will have a roundup of the Southern Conference League on next week's show as well. So we'll know who's in the semi-finals. Semi-finals take place on August 31st, so we'll have a comprehensive roundup of the league and looking towards the Southern Conference League final, which I'm definitely going to be attending this year. It's the same weekend as the Harry Jepson Cup as well, so
It ties in nicely.
Yeah, it's a great weekend of rugby. Okay, tackle 5 then, and we are talking Super League attendances. An article, it was on loverugbyleague.com, so give them credit for some of the information in this tackle. They've compiled the average attendances from all the Super League clubs over the last 3 years, because that's what the IMG points are going to be based on. Anything that stood out to you from this, Mark?
Not stood out. Looking at the crowd for Salford, the average for 4,854. I'm just astounded how they can be fourth in the league. I think they're fourth in the league at the moment.
Yeah.
And crowds that they've got, and then I know they've had some money problems over the last few years, but they keep churning out good season after good season based on those crowds. So they're obviously using the money wisely. But in terms of crowd, they just don't seem to be able to build their crowd base enough. I
think that's probably got something to do with the location of the stadium.
Yeah.
I've often thought when I've gone to Salford, it's absolutely just in the middle of nowhere.
I mean, you can. I mean, from the M60, you can see it. You as you're pulling into the Trafford Centre, you can see the stadium, so you know it's there. But you get off the motorway, then you have to travel a bit further, and it's been one of those things with Salford. It's a lovely stadium to go to, but it's not easy to get to from the old where the Willows was in Salford. Yeah. They're old, so that's unfortunate for them.
I suppose we should put this in a bit of context actually, and explain what the IMG criteria is. So if you get a crowd of 7,500, 2.5 IMG points you get for that, 2.5. Anywhere between 3,000 and 7,499, you get 2 points, and then between 1,500 and 2,999, you get 1.5 points. So the team that's skirting really close to that is Castleford. So their average has come out at 7,547. So they're literally 47 fans over the last 3 years of getting the maximum IMG points, which it's squeaky bum time, I think, for them.
It's cruel, but with IMG, what they're trying to do, they're trying to push clubs to being clubs that can self-sustain.
Yes.
And to self-sustain, you've got to have those big crowds. With Castleford, since Darryl Powell left, they've had a few seasons where they've gone down a little bit. But with Craig Lingard, when he took over from... I can't remember who the previous coach was. Anyway, well, when Craig Lingard took over... Andy Last, that's it.
Andy Last, of course, yes.
So he took over from Andy Last, but I think Castleford have had this, you know what, we need to just rebuild. So I think the fans have dropped since then, but I think that from what I'm seeing, the fans at Castleford, they're starting to realise the process that Craig Lingard is trying to put in. So I think the crowds are going up a bit, but then they're having stadium developments, and that will help as well.
Stadium, yeah, well... What's actually happening with Castleford's ground?
Well, from what I can see, down the...
I mean, we were going to get this new stadium, weren't we, down by the Escape, and well, that went on for about 10 years. And
about 10 years ago, they actually had a photograph of someone with a spade digging to say, look, we've dug the first one, but that was to keep the wolf from the door, to keep Super League from relegated, because that was the fear at the time.
Yeah.
But now with this IMG, they really do need to get things, especially with Featherstone. Featherstone's ground, their ground isn't Super League level, but it's definitely better than some of the clubs that are in there. They've got a tidy ground. Wakefield, they're making improvements. So Castleford, they need to do it. And what they've done, from what I've seen so far, they've put a load of seats down one side of the pitch, and where a lot of people congregated. And then the main stand, from what I can see, is going to be demolished and replaced with a brand new one. Again, they have to, but that should help with their crowd figures, because people are more likely to come to a ground where they're going to be comfortable.
Yeah, I mean, I've always enjoyed going to Cast, to be honest with you. It is a beaten up, old shed of a stadium, but the atmosphere is brilliant in there.
It seems to be a real fan's favourite of a stadium to go to, because it's quite old-fashioned. It's got that, it's antiquated, but it's like, again, in the Championship, everyone's second team is Batley, because they love to go to the ground where it's an old-fashioned ground, but they've got so much going on. They've got an open bar. It's just got that feel about it.
Best food apparently at Batley.
Yeah, apparently. I sampled it last year. It was nice. It was nice.
Yeah, I've loads of people tell me, wherever you got a Batley, have the I think it's like cottage pie and stuff like that. It's meant to be. Yeah. Anyway, we've gone completely off the boil here. We're talking about food. one of the teams that stood out to me as well, Lee Leopards. You see, they're averaging 6,187. So they've been docked here. So their crowds this year are 8,000, which would get them the maximum 2.5 IMG points. But because it's gone on a 3-year average,
they're being penalised.
Yeah, they're being penalised, and they're only actually hitting 6,000. So therefore, they're only actually picking up the 2 points. So that could harm them.
They're being penalised for being in the Championship, where you're not going to have many fans going to their stadium. I remember their last year in the Championship, they weren't getting many away fans going because they knew they were going to get battered. So they're saving the money for another time. So they were penalised for being so good in the Championship, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it completely makes sense. Yeah, I mean, fans aren't stupid, are they now? If you watch a Championship club and you're only going to go to a handful of games each year, like I do, I don't live near the club I support anymore, so I only got so many. You don't want to go and watch the game that you know your team's going to lose every week.
Yeah. The thing with Lee in the last year of the Championship, some fans wanted to go because they wanted to see their team play against Big Lee and Derek Bowman's little project. So they wanted to do that, but again, you knew you were going to be playing against Tom Amon, you're going to be playing against John Asiata, Edwin Pape, and they were just lightning, and you just do. I mean, the start of that season, my team, Widnes, went to play Lee in the Challenge Cup. We thought we could go toe to toe. We couldn't, and I think from then on, everyone realised Lee are going to do something special, and they did. But then again, going back to the point, they've been penalised for being in the Championship.
Yeah, and the other one as well is London, who are averaging this year just over 3,000, which would have actually got them 2 points.
Yeah,
but again, their average over the 3 years is only 1,800. So again, but it kind of seems that London's fate is already on the wall, it seems.
And it's a shame because at the start of the season, their coach said, due to IMG, we know we're probably only going to be in Super League for one season. So what is the point in investing so much money in the first team when we need to invest money around the rest of the club, which is what IMG want. They want people to invest in the other things going on in the club to make them a sustainable club. But it's just such a shame that the time when you want the sport to grow in London, it's only going to be for 1 year. And then you've got Hull FC, who are really struggling. They're an A-grade club by the look of things.
Yeah.
But they've really struggled this year because they don't need to worry too much about the team. Interestingly,
Hull FC's average attendance is 11,500. Hull KR, 8,600.
It's because Hull FC have always been...
There's a big gap, that. It's bigger than I expected it to be.
It is, but Hull FC have always been the club. It's a bit like Bradford Bulls. They've always been a club that people say they should be in Super League because they are a massive club. Hull FC are a massive club. They're an A-grade club. They've got so much going on. There's expectation, and every year fans will say, we'll have a better season this year. Bit like Warrington.
Yeah.
It's our season next year. Yeah, okay. With Hull KR, I can see them overtaking Hull FC as the club of Hull within the next few years because they've got so much going for them. You just you asked me earlier on about what the Super League clubs do on a match day. They've got everything going on at Hull KR on a match day.
Yeah.
At the end of the pitch, there's no stand, but they've got bars.
Craven Street. Yeah, it's great, that.
And that is like, for me, that's like a model of what all clubs should be aspiring to. A bit like what we said about Little Batley. Little Batley, shouldn't say that. If anyone from West Yorkshire. Yeah. At Batley, they've got stuff going on. That's why people enjoy going there. People want to go to Hull KR Stadium because of what's going on.
Yeah, so if you live in Hull and you agree with Mark or you disagree with Mark, put your comment in the section below. Right, we'll move on to Tackle 6. So Tackle 6, we were going to talk about IMG. So this is the usual Williams weekly spot, but this week, Mark, it's over to you. So this is Mark's weekly,
I mean, we've spoken about IMG quite a lot, haven't we? And I mean, when IMG came in, it's meant to be, this was it, a 12-year agreement? I've got it written down somewhere. I think it's a 12-year agreement that they've got. So we're now into the third year where they're going to support Super League. Well, not Super League, but support Rugby League and take us into the next 100 years as being not this sport that's just in enough, not this sport that struggles, but a sport that can develop, a bit like what's happening in the Midlands.
Yeah, elite level. Yeah.
Elite level. And I agree with it. because my team Widnes, I've always been at, come on, you need to treat us well, but actually we need to treat ourselves well. We need to grow. I know my club Widnes, we're not at a level where we can compete at Super League. We used to have a backer a few years ago who said, I'll take you out of the Championship into Super League, but then I'm handing the baton over to you. You need to make the club sustainable to the fans. And we thought, yeah. But then he did what he said. He went over to Australia, Steve O'Connor. Fair play, that's what he said he was going to do. But us as fans, us as a club, we didn't grow. And so what happened, we got relegated, went into administration. So IMG have been brought on board to make sure this doesn't happen. But the thing with IMG is they want clubs to grow, but to grow, you've got to have the finances. Not all club can generate those funds. So if you're in the Championship, you are immediately not succeeding because you're not given as much money as the Super League clubs.
Yeah, you got one hand tied behind your back, essentially, haven't you?
Went up to Whitehaven at the weekend, last weekend to watch Widnes, and I'm just astounded that Whitehaven, as a club, hasn't been able to grow because they've got such a massive amateur game up in Cumbria, and just like Workington. But again, they need the fans through the gate. To get the fans through the gate, you need a winning team. You need people to come and experience this whole stadium that's comfortable to go in. But Whitehaven haven't got the funds to do that.
Yeah.
But they can't do that because the funds for the Championship clubs
so low. Yeah.
It's so low. I mean, the Whitehaven chief executive last Monday after the Widnes game, he came on social media and he said,
big news, this week.
Very honest with the fans and said, we need money. 2 years ago, they were getting £140,000 from the RFL. The Super League money, all the funds from that has gone. They were getting £140,000 central funding. Now this season they're getting 40,000. So they've got to make up that 100,000, just like all Championship clubs. But if you've not got the stadium, if you've not got the fans, how can you compete? How can you compete against Super League clubs who've already got the facilities, who are already getting the millions of pounds?
Well, there's an easy answer, isn't there, in Cumbria?
Yeah, there is.
You just merge Workington, Barrow and Whitehaven, just create Cumbria Rugby League.
Again,
I'm only joking because I know that creates civil war whenever I say something, whenever that gets mentioned. But you know what? In all seriousness, there's 3 clubs there and none are thriving as such.
It is such. I mean, show me age again. Back in 1995, at the start of Super League, Widnes were expected to join with Warrington. That was like asking Bradford to merge with Leeds.
Yeah, I know.
It's not going to happen.
I suppose it's easy to say when you're not, when it's not, your team's not directly.
But
involved.
we're going to merge and become Cheshire. No one's going to support Cheshire because everyone wanted to support Widnes because 4 years before that we were world champions.
Yeah,
and even now we wouldn't need to merge with Warrington. Widnes can survive as our own entity, but we need the game to spread. Ideal opportunities in Cumbria. Even if you had a West Cumbrian side, and then you had Whitehaven and Workington existing in their own entity, but operating at Championship level,
like a feeder for a Cumbrian Super League side,
you'd still have your team to watch, but hopefully people would engage with this whole West Cumbria thing. But again, you need someone to come along with money to invest in that.
I think something's going to have to happen because I don't think Workington are in an amazing place financially either. It wasn't too long that they were putting the warning signs out.
On the same day that Whitehaven put out the begging bowl, Workington did a similar thing, but not asking for money. It's just, we want someone to take us on to the next level. They said that in the next 2 years, we want to be a Championship team that competes at mid-table and nothing less. Right? They know in a few years' time they should be getting a new stadium because they're going on board with, I think it's Workington Reds Football Club. I think that's what they call it. Anyway,
that's good.
A new stadium.
Good news,
yeah. But you still need a team to be in that stadium. Stadiums to operate don't come for free. You need someone to take you into that stadium and take you to the next level. But you need the money to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think Workington changed their business model, didn't they, a couple of years ago? Actually, one thing I would say about Workington is a lot of their players are homegrown players now.
Yeah.
And that's good to see because they're giving them that opportunity. But
without knowing the squad too much, I don't think there is many, if any, overseas players in Workington squad.
No, I don't think there is anymore.
Whitehaven, it seems to be after year that they're staving off relegation and they're bringing more Aussies in each year. So like this season, I think they've got about 6 or 7 overseas players and the rest are amateurs. They can't keep doing that year after year. I suppose with Workington, they got relegated. They are 6th in the table now, joint with Hurricanes.
Yep.
I think they've reached that moment where we need to build a club, which is what IMG want. But again, you need to be on a level playing field. That's what I'm saying with Super League clubs to some extent.
So I suppose we've got to come up with some sort of conclusion at some point with this. Is like, what is the answer for some of these struggling clubs? Do we agree that IMG doesn't really work for them? Because my opinion of IMG is that actually they're setting, like you, they're setting standards that they're expecting clubs to get to. There is some flaws in it. I don't think it's right that London Broncos' catchment area is tiny. When they've got when they're only professional rugby league club in the city of London, I think that's absolute madness. So there's things not right with it. But I do agree with what IMG are trying to do and create minimum standards for all clubs.
I mean, it's a 12-year agreement. There's a lot of fans saying now with IMG, it's not working. They're turning against it, but it's a 12-year agreement for a reason.
Yeah.
It's got to be done over 12 years. My concern is that we still don't know at the end of the season how it's all going to pan out. The season's got to finish. The figures have got to be totted up. Then it's right. You're going to be in Super League next year. What about the rest of the teams? Is it going to be a shut door for a few seasons? Or will it be next season we'll do it all again? So a lot of clubs are now thinking, do we need to go for bust now so that we can get into Super League and invest up? Because I know Bradford Bulls, I keep going to Bradford, but they are a club that Super League want in. But they are spending a lot of money because they know that will the trapdoor eventually fall in?
Yeah, so it's an interesting one, that, innit? I don't think they've ever said, have they, if this is a yearly thing. So like, you got Toulouse, Wakefield and Bradford who've all got Super League ambition, and you could write a reason why all 3 of those could be in Super League over some Super League clubs. I don't expect Bradford to make it this year. I think it's going to be between Toulouse and Wakefield. Wakefield seem to think already that it's them, but Toulouse have got other answers. I
think everyone thought that London will be in for one season, then they'll drop out, and then who replaces them? But Castleford, as you mentioned earlier on, are they at the right level? Because looking at the gradings that were issued in the autumn, there was about half a point, I think, separating some of the bottom Super League teams with the higher end Championship teams. So do IMG think, well, you know what, Castleford, we know the building, let's keep them in there? Or do you say, no, you've not built quickly enough? And again, that's what I'm worried about, that some clubs are going to try and build too quickly and go bust. And then it's just, that's just my opinion on it all. I agree completely with this IMG in that you've got to build clubs. But are we doing it the right way?
Well, we've come up with no answer. We've debated it for 5-10 minutes and come up with no answer. But yeah, there's talking points in there. I'd really love to hear what other people think as well. If you put down in the comments what you think of the whole IMG grading, it's a really interesting talking point.
Just one thing, I mean, Cornwall, they're not expected to be there or thereabouts, but they're building year on year. They're getting more and more wins each year. Are they realistically, let's say, by the end of 12 years, are they a club realistically that have got a chance of being up there?
I'll throw one more thing out before we wrap it up. It's relatively on the same lines. What do you think they should do with the Championship and League One?
Not merge it.
Not merge it?
No, because we've done that before and it just ends up with more. Can you imagine, again, Cornwall, the building year on year. Can you imagine them playing, let's say, Widnes or Bradford or Featherstone away?
Yeah.
They're not at a point where they can compete with the top end of League One. Merging, I can just see some more embarrassing scores.
All right, what do we do with League One then? League One isn't working. League One definitely doesn't work, and there isn't enough clubs in the league for a start off to make it sustainable for the clubs that are there. They don't get enough home fixtures to bring money through the door,
and that is the issue. Newcastle.
Do we drop a couple of teams out of the Championship and put them into League One? Make it.
Newcastle at the start of the season, they pretty much folded, didn't they?
Yeah.
Because they said we can't sustain, because London Scholars, they folded. Newcastle, because they said we can't sustain our club on this amount of fixtures because we've got hardly any teams in the league. So you thought about merging or dropping teams down. I mean, eventually they came up with this 1895, reimagine 1895 Cup.
Yeah.
That helped to an extent, but I don't think that actually brought much more money in. I don't know the answer to this, but I don't know, maybe some sort of conferencing needs to happen either side of the country. I don't know. It's one of those that it's up to IMG and the RFL to decide, not me. But I do have opinions, but...
Yeah, I think one thing that has sort of been... I heard it mentioned on a different podcast this week is that maybe the players in League One are potentially being paid more money than they should be because of the level of crowds that it actually brings in. But we have a small player pool, don't we, in this country? So I don't know. I'm like you. I don't know what the answer is. But
maybe it has to just be kept as it is. And at the moment, down at the bottom, it's quite tight in the Championship. You've got Barrow, you've got Whitehaven, you've got Swinton. You've actually got Halifax in the mix, so they're in danger of going down. But I think eventually it will sort itself out. Whitehaven may just take a drop down and do a Workington and just have to just rebuild.
Rebuild, yeah.
Then you've got Oldham, who've got their new backers. You've got Hurricanes, who've got the new backers. You've got Crusaders. They just need to be given a chance. And I think maybe there just needs to be the 3 tiers. And down in the League One, it just has to be, this is the level where you're at the moment, but you've got to grow your club into a Championship club. You've got to grow.
Yeah, I get what you mean.
It's not easy, but sometimes it just has to be that realisation.
No, so I think we've set the world to rights there. We'll wrap that up there. Look, thank you for watching this episode. Mark, thank you for stepping in Craig's absence. I'm sure that people will be calling for you to be on every week now. Maybe we get rid of Williams. Thank you for watching. If you've got anything to comment on, drop it in the comments below. We've also got an episode coming out this week with Troy Perkins he's played all over the place, actually. It's a great podcast episode dropping on Thursdays. He's played in Australia, top level Australia schoolboys, state of origin. We were supposed to drop it out last week. Unfortunately, we didn't quite get time to get the edit done, but it's definitely going out this week. So, yeah, keep an eye out for that episode on Thursday. It's an absolute belter. And that's it. Thank you very much for watching.